Hello and welcome to another trip report. I am in Boston, having just travelled up on that Acela Express over my shoulder there for the last 5 hours from Washington DC. So today we're going up the Northeast Corridor with Amtrak on their Acela Express in first class. Enjoy the video. I made one of my traditional verbal tics during that intro. The Amtrak Acela Express doesn't take 5 hours to get between Washington and Boston, it takes closer to 7. Covering about 450 miles, that means this express service averages just over 60 miles an hour. We'll find out the reason why a little later. However, our journey starts here at Washington Union Station, one of America's great railroad terminals. Built in 1907, it really reflects a time when railways were front and centre of the American imagination. The building of railroads across America in the late 19th and early 20th centuries was a key factor in taming the American frontier and creating the American nation we recognise today. After the popularisation of the motor car, the railroad declined in importance, but it's fantastic to look at stations like Washington Union and reminisce of different times. Just off the main hall is the more utilitarian passenger side. Here is where you'll pick up your tickets, unless, like me, you've ordered them online, in which case you can display them on your phone. Amtrak Acela only has two classes of service, business and first, with first being higher. All first class tickets will get you into this lounge. If the Great Hall evoked memories of a time when the railroads were of peak importance, I have to say the Acela Lounge evokes exactly the opposite. It's very 90s, it's run down and well in need of refurbishment. That said, you'll still be able to pick up a drink of coffee, a soft drink, and even something small to eat before you start your journey northbound. One feature I really did appreciate about the lounge here is the luggage facility. We really do need a lot more of these in Britain. Boarding is done quickly and easily, however I do recommend that you make some tracks to get onto the train as soon as possible. There is no reserved seating on the Acela Express, which means it's a free-for-all. Some seats are better than others. There's just one first class car on the Acela Express, and it's at the south end of the train usually. That means it's closest to the station here in Washington. As you can see, seating in first class is in a 1-2 configuration, with some solos, some twins and some facing table seats. The seats themselves are not too dissimilar to what you'd expect in domestic first class on most American carriers. However, they are looking a little bit tired. That said, the legroom in first class is pretty much unbeatable. There's plenty of space between you and the seat in front. There's also a very sturdy and large drop-down table, and some additional storage in a seat back pocket. There are also two charge points by my seat. I'm pleased to say they both worked and gave a decent charge despite my unorthodox adapter arrangement. I have to say that the boarding process was pretty chaotic. Amtrak really should think about introducing reserved seating on the Acela Express. I do think it saves a lot of anxiety for everyone. One of the real plus points of these trains is the enormous storage space for bags. There are very generous overhead bins which will take pretty much any size carry-on, similar to what you'd be able to take on an aircraft. There's also additional storage between seats for much larger bags, like mine. At the end of the carriage is a disabled accessible bathroom. I'm pleased to report this was spotless when I got on board and remained so throughout the journey.
If you are seated in the quiet car, please refrain from using cell phones or sound-emitting electronic devices, and please keep in
Thank
tone. While on board,
We pull out of the station bang on time, and of course the first thing I want to do is check out the Wi-Fi. Amtrak, in contrast to most American airlines, has free Wi-Fi on the Amtrak Connect network. I know you're not supposed to use this for watching a video, but I did do my usual test of seeing if it played a YouTube video. It played this with no problems whatsoever. This is a long trip, and as I'm on this train for the duration, nearly 7 hours, there are two meal services. There's breakfast and lunch. All of the food service is included in your first class rail ticket. The first class car has a dedicated attendant, and the service was therefore swift and efficient throughout the journey. I've travelled Amtrak several times now, and it's a really strange beast, not comparable to most European railways. Nearly all of the carriages, including ours, are really tired, but the comfort I've always found to be above average. The seat recline here in first class is pretty substantial and much better than on most European trains. I have to say I don't really get some of the branding partnerships they have in first class. This is supposed to be their premium product, but there's Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I don't really identify with them as a premium brand. Between Washington and New York, we'll be travelling at speeds up to 135 miles per hour. Most of the track here is highly engineered, high-speed rail. However, the ride quality is nowhere near as good as it should be for a high-speed line. My orange juice here spilled more than a couple of times during the journey. For breakfast, I chose the omelette with its accompaniments, which you can see here. I have to say, I wasn't particularly overwhelmed by the food on Amtrak. First class tickets are expensive and there's definitely scope to improve the food offering, I think. There are a number of stops between Washington and Boston. One of those is Thurgood Marshall Airport here in Baltimore. It's one of only a comparatively small number of airports in the United States that have a connection to the heavy rail network. The next stop is Wilmington, Delaware. Now here something a little bit unusual, I think, happened. The police boarded the train here in Wilmington and used a sniffer dog. I'm not sure whether this is routine or whether they were looking for someone or something specific. The first large station on our journey today is Philadelphia, and we reach it bang on time.
Areas surrounding accessible seating. Accessible seating areas must be readily available.
Shortly after leaving Philadelphia, we pick up speed again, and there's a second service which includes a savoury snack bag, which you can see here. There's also a basic cold towel service, not too dissimilar to what you'd see on some airlines. After just under 3 hours of travelling, we're approaching Newark and New York, Penn Station. This section of the journey between Washington and New York is certainly comparable in journey time to using the airlines, certainly when you factor in all of the rigmarole such as check-in and collecting your bag after the event. Penn Station is underground and is a pretty depressing place, but it is also the United States' busiest railway station. Here, most people do get off. It turns out that not many people are making the full journey between Washington and Boston, and that's because the journey times are comparatively poor compared to the airlines. There's about a 10-minute wait here at Penn Station, and I chose another soft drink as the service passed through the car again. As you head north out of Penn Station, on the left-hand side you will eventually grab some fantastic views of downtown New York. Unfortunately, the weather was not playing ball with me today, so you'll have to use your imagination to figure out how wonderful this would look on a beautiful summer's day. One of the things I did appreciate about the service is that the meals were served at appropriate times. Lunch came at about 1 p.m. However, again for me the food did come up a little short. I definitely think Amtrak should look at improving their food offering, and this would make the overall ACELA experience much more pleasurable. On the subject of ticket inspections, I managed to get all the way between Washington and New York with nobody checking my ticket. However, just after New York, the conductor did come round and inspected my ticket, which I had on my mobile device. The line up to Boston contrasts sharply with the line between Washington and New York. Unfortunately, the North Shore line is much slower. It's pretty pedestrian by comparison. The main reason for the very long journey time between Washington and Boston is because of this very slow section of line. The average speed between New York and Boston is just 49 miles per hour today. However, that said, I do consider this stretch of track to be much more scenic than the high-speed line between Washington and New York. Enjoy the views for just a moment. Just shy of 7 hours travel time into the journey, and we're approaching Boston's South Station, the terminus for today's journey and the end of the line for the AMTRAK ACELA Express. Personally, I found the AMTRAK ACELA proposition slightly confusing. I think it's a really good option between Washington and New York if you can get the right fare, but the service is in no way at all competitive with airlines if you're travelling the full distance between Washington and Boston, or even the northern section between Boston and New York. I really enjoyed my time on the train. To be honest, I'm a bit of an enthusiast. However, all of that said, I can't really recommend AMTRAK's ACELA Express in first class as a good value product. There are just too many shortcomings for me to say that this is really a premium product worthy of the price that it commands. And that brings us very nicely to the end of this little review. Thanks for bearing with this, and I really hope you enjoyed my little review of AMTRAK's ACELA Express. There are loads more train videos to come. I've been holding back on posting them because I've got this round the world tour to finish off. There's just one more video and then we'll be back to normal service. Thanks for watching. It will be great if you subscribed, and happy travels wherever you are.